Hey, this is AJ with Blackhawk Bushcraft, bringing you another video and also a recipe. Thank you very much for joining me today. The recipe that I wanted to share with all of you is called Switchel, which is pretty much the Gatorade of the time, an energy drink to help replenish electrolytes. And you just picture farmers out there working hard in the fields, and when they needed a little bit of refreshment and a little bit of pick-me-up, this is what they would use. It's a very simple recipe of 5 ingredients. Your water, just clear tap water, clean drinking water, some ground ginger. This is just McCormick brand ground ginger, okay? You also want some Barbados molasses or light molasses. This is Golden Barrel Unsulfured Premium Baking Molasses. This is what's known as Barbados molasses. I would strongly encourage against sulfured molasses or blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses being very, very bitter, not a sweet. Your final product would probably end up having too much of a bitter overtone if you use blackstrap molasses. And then sulfured molasses versus unsulfured pretty much is just the way that they make the molasses. So unsulfured molasses is made from ripe sugarcane, whereas sulfured molasses is made from young sugarcane. And I believe they add sulfur dioxide to the young sugarcane to help preserve it and also enhance the flavor, but it can have kind of a weird chemically altered flavor to it. So the best rule of thumb is unsulfured molasses. Now, if you do use blackstrap molasses, if that's all you have or can get your hands on, you probably could make it work, but just know it's probably going to be maybe a little bit more bitter than what you'd like, and you may have to add some other type of a sweetener to it. The 4th ingredient is apple cider vinegar. This is just Bragg brand organic apple cider vinegar with the mother included. So when you're looking for apple cider vinegars, typically what you'll see in the store is filtered apple cider vinegar, which basically means that they've removed the mother. So apple cider vinegar is made in a 2-step process, which pretty much they take yeast and they add it to apple juice to break down the sugars and turn them into alcohol. Then they will take bacteria, which is known as the mother, and add that to the mixture, which then converts all the alcohol into acetic acid. The bacteria is what's known as the mother, and that's where all the helpful, very healthy benefits are that you get in apple cider vinegar. Now, you'll typically know if it's has the mother still in it because it's very cloudy, and that is what you want. That's what I would use. You can use unfiltered apple cider vinegar as well, but apple cider vinegar has a lot of health benefits as it is. Everything from antioxidants to, I think, potassium, actually. That's actually maybe the molasses. Anyways, molasses and apple cider vinegar have great healthy benefits to them, and I'd encourage you to look up the benefits. I've actually used apple cider vinegar to help control acid reflux naturally for a number of years, and it works great to minimize the aggravation with acid reflux. Also, number 5 ingredient, this is what I like to add to my recipe of Switchel, and it's just 100% Vermont maple syrup. This is the butternut brand of maple syrup, and I always go with the dark, robust taste. They have maple syrups in different grades. Amber Light is one of the probably most common, which you would use for pancakes and waffles and things like that. The dark, robust taste gives you a little bit of that stronger maple flavor. Very woodsy, very pleasant, at least to me. I like the stronger flavor. A lot of people are kind of turned off by the dark, robust grade of maple syrup, but that's not me. I love that. So basically, there's your 5 ingredients. Clean drinking water, 32 ounces. Ground ginger, McCormick brand or any type of ground ginger will work. Molasses, again, I highly recommend Barbados or light molasses. Do not use blackstrap, and definitely stay away from sulfured molasses. Then apple cider vinegar and your maple syrup. And pretty much the portions are 2 tablespoons of molasses to 1 quart of drinking water, which is 1/8 of a cup. Okay, so you're going to put in your molasses. And then the same, 2 tablespoons of 100% pure Vermont maple syrup, dark robust. That's also 1/8 of a cup. So that's 1/2 a cup of sweetener total between your molasses and your maple syrup. Okay. Then 2 tablespoons of unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother. That's 1/8 of a cup. So as you can see, you have 1/8 of a cup of molasses, 1/8 of a cup of dark robust maple syrup, which is 1/4 of a cup, and then 1/8 of a cup of vinegar. So your ratio to sweetener to vinegar is half the vinegar to your sweetener. So if you're doing 1/2 a cup, it would be 1/4 of a cup, or if you're doing 1/4 of a cup, it's 1/8 of a cup of vinegar. And then 2 generous teaspoons of ground ginger. And that goes in there. Let me grab something to stir this up. And then you're going to basically just give this a good stir. Make sure that that molasses, vinegar, and ginger and maple syrup are mixed well. And I'll also leave the recipe in the description for all of you. The recipe that I've used generally is 1/2 of a gallon. But for today's demonstration, I'm just going to do enough, just half the batch. And just give it a good stir. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm just going to move this out of the way. That is your Switchel, and you'll see as things kind of, settle, your ginger will have a tendency, your ground ginger will have a tendency to either settle to the bottom over time, or if it's a new batch, it'll rise to the top, as you can see there. So what you want to do is just before you serve it and drink it, you just want to make sure that you give that a good stir. Now, you also can substitute the ground ginger for fresh ginger, and I've done that too. If you like a really, really strong fresh ginger flavor, fresh ginger is the way to go. If you just want the nice ginger kick, and of course, ground ginger tastes much different than fresh ginger, but it's all very, very good. Okay. And again, this concoction is from the 1800s, and it might actually be earlier than that. If you find yourself not liking molasses, or you can't get your hands on maple syrup, and again, with the maple syrup, absolutely do not use artificial maple syrups like Mrs. Butterworth's or just what you typically would pick up at the grocery store. If you're using maple syrup as a sweetener, I highly recommend to use the real stuff, because using the artificial stuff, yes, it'll sweeten it, but you're also adding a lot of corn syrups and other garbage in your drink that you don't want in there. And it just gives it a really weird flavor as well. So if you don't have maple syrup, that's great. I use the maple syrup because it has a tendency to tone down a little bit of the molasses. Of course, I do love molasses, but specifically if you're using blackstrap molasses, you are not going to want to use all blackstrap molasses. But I found for my recipe, I really enjoy half and half the molasses and half the maple syrup with the apple cider vinegar and then the ginger. And that's pretty much it for this recipe. You need to give it a try and let me know in the comments what you think, or maybe you've had Switchel before, or maybe you have other variations of Switchel that you've made yourself if you're familiar with this beverage. But if you're out, on the trail, specifically for all of us that are kind of into bushcrafting and survival and natural type things, this is a really great, refreshing beverage that you could just have with you. And if you need something to just kind of replenish some of your electrolytes, because it's very high in potassium, and ginger, apple cider vinegar, molasses, 100% pure Vermont maple syrup all have a lot of very healthy benefits. I encourage you to look up those benefits and see if this might be something that you would be willing to try out. I really like it. I'm going to serve me up a little bit right here. Just grab me a little cup out of the cupboard. Give this another good stir so I don't get all the ginger. And again, over time, the ginger will settle. But initially when you're doing it, you just want to make sure that you don't get like all the ginger at the top. And I'm just going to pour me a little bit here. And I just made a huge mess all over the counter, which is fine. But that's what it looks like, and this is what it tastes like. That is so good. Switchel. Now, I actually add more ginger than what the traditional recipe from the 1800s calls for. I think it's like, I can't remember how much they call for, but I pretty much almost put in double the amount of the ground ginger because I really like the ginger flavor. And again, I really like the maple syrup that in the way that it complements the Barbados molasses. Now, I have made it just with pure molasses as my sweetener, just using nothing but the molasses, and it too is still very, very good. But I just find that I get the sweet of both of them. They complement each other. It kind of tones down the molasses. And then if you want a little bit more tart, if you find that it's a little bit too sweet, you can always add a little bit more apple cider vinegar. And a lot of people, you know, when I've served this to them or had them try it, they're like, oh, I'm drinking a vinegar-based drink. That seems kind of weird because vinegar isn't the first thing that, you know, most people are going to want to drink or consume. But it's a really tasty beverage, very refreshing. It smells very apple cidery, but not vinegary. And you can definitely smell the molasses and the ginger in there as well. It's much better. This is room temperature water, or basically just as cold as it's coming out of my tap right now. And it still tastes very good, but the best way to drink this is ice cold. And that's what they would do in the 1800s. You'd have farmers and everybody going out for the day. They'd mix up their huge batch of Switchel. They put it in their big old jug and lower it into a well or put it in a cold stream to just really get it nice and chilled. And then the hay farmers would come in when they needed some refreshment. They would wet their whistle with Switchel, which would not only refresh them and hydrate them, but also give them a little bit of kick because of the potassium and the other benefits that are in this, which you just wouldn't get from drinking tap water. Not saying that you can't drink tap water. Tap water is a great way to hydrate, but this is something that when you're fatigued, it's basically the energy drink of the 1800s. This was what they used. And there's other variations of this recipe as well, but this is the one that I like. This is the one that I serve and use. This is the one that my family enjoys. So feel free to give it a try. And again, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and posting your comments if you've had Switchel, if you haven't, if you're going to try it, or if you have tried it, what you think of this recipe. I think you're going to like it. Thanks again and have a great day.